Our gospel lesson, or not our gospel lesson, our lesson from the Hebrew Scriptures, is taken from the book of Genesis chapter 12 and verses 1 through 4. Listen to what the Spirit might speak into your life this day. In Genesis chapter 12 and verses 1 through 4, this is the call of Abram. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your own country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name to be great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Such wonderful choices for the preacher on a day like this, when the scriptures are all so good. But because I so often preach the text from John, I decided to preach Genesis. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. Abram, whose name is going to be changed to Abraham, Abram is called to act as a mirror to the world. When people flash their ugliness and their hate and their unkindness at him, it reflects back on them. But when people meet him with welcome and goodness and love, those blessings reflect back on them too. And in you, God tells Abram, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Abram's mirror reflects back to people what they cast at him, whether blessing or curse. Our calling is to be a blessing and not a curse. You're not called to be successful, though I hope that you will be. You're not called to make a name for yourself, though that's very nice. You're not called to leave lots of children to remember you. You're not called to any great act or deed. You are called to be a blessing in the place where you are planted. You're an agent of blessing. Did you watch the Super Bowl a few weeks ago? Probably. I assume probably most everyone watched the Super Bowl. I did not, because I'm a clergy person and I'm exempt from having to watch the Super Bowl because I'm busy thinking higher thoughts, you know. I used to tell people that I only watch football when the Steelers are in the Super Bowl. And I do, except that in 2006, I urgently had to polish my nickels and dimes, pennies, on Super Bowl Sunday. So there was no way I could watch the game that year. I mean, it's not easy buffing a penny back to its original shine. Then in 2009, well, there was a snow-packed trail through a patch of hemlocks in the wintry woods that just was calling for my presence. And so I had to miss the Super Bowl. But I do remember that day. It was a great day. Don't remember if we won or lost. Then in 2011, Susan Hicks gave me a terrible towel and told me to wear it in the pulpit. I did not wear stoles back in those days. And I must say that the gold towel with the black robe and the white collar made me look like a real fan. But when game time rolled around, there was an abandoned house that I had been wanting to check out for a long time. A shingle-sided farmhouse that was probably going to collapse soon, and it did shortly after I explored it. So I couldn't possibly watch the Steelers play on that day. But other than that, I am a fan. I'm an avid fan. Every time my team is in the Super Bowl, I am there. It's like the old fellow who said, whenever church is on the 5th Sunday in February, I'm there. And of course, February almost never has a 5th Sunday. But millions of people find it more important to watch a football game between two teams that they don't really care about for 3 hours and 45 minutes, than to have shiny nickels. You do you, I'll do me. Did you happen to see the advertisement that caused such an uproar the day after Super Bowl Sunday? If you look it up on YouTube, and I suggest that you do, even if you already saw it, you'll find it under He Gets Us. It's the He Gets Us ad. It shows real life scenes, not staged scenes, real scenes of people just raging at each other. Black and white images show an overweight man with hate in his eyes acting as if he's going to climb a lunch counter at some poor Latino woman behind the counter. Another black and white shows two people with bull horns, maybe 5 feet apart, just shouting at each other while everybody around them is holding their ears and cringing. People are getting up in each other's faces, yelling, shouting, eyes full of hate. In many of the pictures, there are bystanders trying to pull people apart so they won't fight, or else trying to restrain someone who's trying to attack another person, usually but not always of another race. There are scenes of actual brawls, and it's all in black and white, which I think makes it more dramatic somehow, because it reminds us of those scenes we used to see, or that we have seen down through the years of the civil rights movement, scenes from the 60s. There's finger pointing and raging and faces contorted with anger and darkness. And though this ad is only 1 minute long, 1 minute, by the end of it, by the end of these scenes of violence, you feel beat up. You feel kind of desperate. And you're also wondering, what's this about? What kind of a Super Bowl ad is this? This isn't clever. This isn't funny. So much hate. And then the screen goes black and silent, and the words appear, Jesus loved the people we hate. And then He gets us, all of us, followed by a web address for the He Gets Us website. Did you see that ad? Okay. On Facebook the next day, people would not stop talking about it. $14 million they spent on that 1 minute ad. $14 million. Think of how many poor people you could feed and clothe for $14 million. So suddenly Jesus needs better PR? Jesus is spending his money on improving his public image? This misses the point of Jesus entirely. Most of my clergy colleagues were outraged. But you know what? I liked it. I loved the ad. I thought it was good. I thought it was poignant and powerful. And all the whining about this money should have been given to the poor reminded me of a disciple long ago who said the exact same thing. When a woman broke a bottle of perfume and anointed him for burial, and Judas said, that money could have been given to the poor. And in case you haven't noticed, Jesus really does need to fire his PR firm and get a better one. Jesus does need better publicity. The things that are said and done in his name, the hate that is preached, the bigotry that is taught, is nothing short of blasphemy. Jesus could sue a lot of Christians for slander. He's got a good case. I have visited this He Gets Us website, and it's good stuff. It's not at all Presbyterian, but it's good stuff. They're not evangelizing. They're just trying to set the record straight that Jesus stands for love, for respect, for mercy, for joy. They're trying to reclaim Jesus from those who are misusing him, making him a mascot for their hate. But the best thing about the ad is that it shows us real-life scenes of America today, and it makes us cringe to see what we have become. It holds a mirror up to our face, and we cannot like it. We cannot like what we see in that mirror. And whenever that happens, there are two things you can do. You can stay the same and remain unhappy, or you can change and try to make it better. When you just cannot endure to remain the same, you can change. Isn't that what Jesus was about? He said, "Do not be astonished that I say to you, you must be born again, or born from above." Again and again and again and again. You got to change. You're called to change. Every raging person in that ad is supposed to be a blessing to this world. Every face contorted with anger and hate, twisted by fury and loathing, is meant to glow with the joy and the peace of God. The attacker and the one under attack were created for each other. They're supposed to be friends. We miss this fact, don't we? We forget. We get so caught up in the passions of the moment, we forget that there is a beauty to life, always. That there is a love that lingers at the outermost edges, waiting to be noticed and claimed. That there is a joy that takes only just a little bit of effort to call out, to induce. A smile, a kind word, a few notes of music, a playful dog will usually do it, a beautiful view. Life is not meant to be what we have made it. There is a goodness at its heart always, always. But we have to seek it. We have to choose it consciously, day by day, hour by hour. We must turn toward blessing and away from cursing. We have to resist the urge to curse and instead choose to bless. You know, a lot of history and theology hangs on these few verses in Genesis that we just read. Here in Genesis, up to this point, if we had read it from the beginning, we would see that God has tried all manner of negative reinforcement in order to get people to behave. God kicked them out of Eden. God sent Noah's flood. God even sent that confusion at the Tower of Babel. It's only here that the narrative switches and the concept of positive reinforcement begins. I will create a special people to bless, and they will bless others, who in turn will bless others, who in turn will bless others, and maybe that way the world will be blessed. It sets the Jewish people apart as those through whom divine blessing will flow and enable all the families of the earth to bring blessings upon themselves. You know, I'm sure that Abram's father also felt quite blessed when at the age of 75 his son finally moved out of the basement. If you read the text carefully, it kind of seems to say that. He left his father's house when he was 75. The promise to Abram is that whatever people flash at him, they will receive back onto themselves. The one who visits curses or hate or anger or fear on him will sooner or later be met with their own assorted sorrows. But those who meet Abram with blessing, kindness, welcome, acceptance, goodwill, they will find that they are not diminished for having given those costly gifts away, for those very things will come back on them. This is Abram's mirror. Some people nowadays might call it karma, but it's not exactly the same as karma. It mostly means, as we said a few weeks ago, that whatever I see in me, I will probably see in you. Whatever I find in myself, I am probably going to look at you and think you have the same stuff in you, mixed motives, suspicion, anger, whether or not it's there. And if I treat you as if you are somehow the cause of my pain, the pain that I see in me, the misery just spreads. But if I can let down my guard, if I can do the courageous thing and put down my guard and assume the best about you, if I can see in you all that is good in me, well-meaning, holy, loving, if I can respond in kind by blessing you, then it will be a blessing not just to you and to me, but to the whole world. Some read this ancient promise and assume that it extends to the descendants of Abram, the Jewish people, and it certainly is true that we have scapegoated the Jewish people down through history, projecting our own worst stuff onto them and treating them with contempt and violence. But to apply this promise of blessing to only one small group of people, I think misses the fact that the intention is that all the people of the earth will be blessed. Some think that the promise is for the modern nation-state of Israel, and that it's actually anti-Semitism to disagree with anything Israel does in the world or on the West Bank. And I've heard this said, support Israel or experience God's wrath. I think the promise is true in a more general way. I think we are all called to be blessings in this world. And everyone you meet, or everyone you hate, or everyone you love, or everyone you just kind of tolerate, they too were meant to be blessings to this world. That's their calling. It's why they were fashioned. God wishes all people to be blessings to each other. And so we have to embrace our status as agents of blessing. Agents of blessing. Rather than looking at the world as the place where we have to go out and get what we can, we look at the world as a place that we are called to bless. You know, today, people are walking around with a bundle of anxieties that most of us never could have imagined. People are walking around with anxieties that no one ever expected and that we don't know how to cope with. They're worried about climate change. They're worried about COVID. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about this social tension. They're worried about politics, North Korea, the Russians. But there's something else. There's something unnameable. People are just anxious. And the worst public figures, some of them so-called journalists, some of them actual politicians, manipulate these anxieties to their own advantage. And they make them worse in the process. All emotions find a location somewhere in your body, I think. I think strong emotions can make you sick or healthy in some ways. They all nest somewhere inside of these temples of the Holy Spirit, inside this physical house where the Spirit dwells, these sacred vessels. These temples of the Spirit, our bodies, are infested with fears which eat away at them like termites. Instead of being the blessings that they were created and called to be, some self-seeking creatures stir up and manipulate fears of the many just so that they and their kind can have more power, more money. People are so riddled with anxieties, especially young people, but not just young people. Exercise and meditation, they tell us, alleviate a lot of these anxieties, and they do. But the truth that a lot of people are overlooking these days is that involvement in a faith community is one of the strongest indicators of health, of spiritual, physical, and mental health. Studies show that people who are active in a synagogue or mosque or church are less likely to succumb to what they call deaths of despair. And I thank our clerk of session, Bill Cadwell, for this information. Deaths of despair, which include, of course, overdoses, drug and alcohol-related illnesses, suicide. Those are all called deaths of despair. But when the churches, too, have become tools in the hands of those who curse and do not bless, how anxious we are, how deep the darkness. During my sabbatical, I took on the strange and humbling task, which I told the adult ed class about, of blessing strangers in public places. Now, I did not do it verbally, and I didn't touch them. That would have been awkward for everybody involved. I got this idea from a speaker at the Chautauqua Institution, and she was not even a religious person. She said that she has begun the practice of speaking blessings over strangers, truck drivers, homeless people, store clerks, anyone. And she would see them and speak blessings into their lives. looking at what she might see to be what she perceives their needs, she might say to one, may you find joy today. May you experience healing. I hope you have enough today. I hope you do not experience fear. I tried doing that, and I'm not sure what it did for any of the people that I blessed, for I never saw them again, but I do know what it did for me. It kept me mindful of the fact that I am called to be a blessing to the world. Not just another demanding, entitled, middle-aged white guy who expects good service, but a blessing to the world. This is Abram's mirror. Name yourself one who is called to be a blessing, one whose duty and calling it is to bless, and you will call out the blessedness in the other. Remind yourself that you are created to be a blessing to the world, as is everyone you meet, whether you like them or not. They might be far from their blessedness, but they are intended to be a blessing. Blessing ought to be our daily posture for living, to reflect grace into all the situations and the people that we meet. When you walk through the world, intent not on getting what you can get from it, but upon blessing it, people will often sense that, and they will flash blessing back to you. You might say it's your aura. You might say it's your glow. It's a reflection of the divine light shining in you and through you. You are created to bless and not to curse. You are a blessing. You're a blessing. It's why you're on this globe. Now let's be about it. Let's be about the calling and the task of blessing this world, because we Christians, we've got some make-up homework to do. Amen.